We are making a seared salmon with a champagne Beurre Blanc. Getting fancy, classical French. This is all inspired by a day we spent actually in the classroom with the students learning one of the dishes they had to make for an exam. And it was a salmon Valentine with champagne Beurre Blanc. What is a Valentine? A Valentine would be when you take out a fish like salmon, cut it into thin strips, pound it into like this long plank, and then you fill it with fish mousse, roll it up, and then poach it. Super, super classic French. We are not going to do that today. We are going to show you a perfect seared filet. However, we are going to bring on that champagne Beurre Blanc. This is such a luscious, decadent sauce that adds the ultimate flavor to any fish dish. What is it? You're making a gastrique. A gastrique is a reduction of wine and vinegar with shallots and peppercorns that you then emulsify butter into. So it's equal parts luscious and tangy, all the way delicious. We are going to show you how to make all of it, show a few clips from our time in London, as well as tell you all about the incredible contest in which we're awarding a scholarship to Le Cordon Bleu. But first things first, let's get started on this recipe. We are going to mince a medium shallot, or as they say in London, shallot. Since we are not going to strain this Beurre Blanc, I want the mince super fine. That's where I'm using those culinary school knife skills. A shallot, it pairs perfectly with champagne, a mignonette for oysters. Shallot is always the go-to because it's so delicate in flavor. So now in a medium saucepan, I'm going to add my shallots, as well as 2 cups of champagne, 2 tablespoons of champagne vinegar, half a teaspoon of black peppercorns. So you could totally use your pepper grinder and just turn it to coarse, but I want it super coarse. 2 tricks: use a mortar or take your measuring cup and crush them. It's super easy. Put in a little elbow grease, roll it around a little. It's kind of a great way to get out frustration. You're not looking to pulverize them, but just get that crack. Am I happy with that? Beautiful, there we go. Now that is super coarsely ground, and we are just going to add that in. If you're eating this raw, it'd be super unpleasant to have these giant chunks of pepper, but this whole mixture is going to simmer down. The pepper will soften, all that flavor will infuse, and it'll actually be kind of nice to have larger chunks. Beautiful. I'm gonna get this on the stove, bring it to a simmer, and we're reducing it down to 1/4 cup. That's not a lot. We're almost like completely drying out this mixture. And then that's the liquid we're gonna use to emulsify in butter. So that means you cannot walk away from the stove. Maybe at first, but once it gets simmering and reduced down, it can go quickly from just a little bit of liquid to completely burnt. You don't want that. So I will show you all of the visual cues of when you know you're gonna be ready. "20 minutes have passed. Take a look at what I was talking about in terms of visual cues. Almost dry, bit of liquid down there. That's all we need. But all that champagne, that vinegar, the shallots, the peppercorns are all infused into this super magical concentrated liquor that we are then going to emulsify butter into. The thing is that happens super quickly. It takes no time to emulsify butter into this. However, it will kind of lose its luster super fast. So I want to cook the salmon first, and then we will reheat this reduction, mix in the butter, plate it, start eating, go to culinary school. Let's cook some salmon. I have a nonstick skillet. I'm going to do this in 2 batches. If you have a larger nonstick, you can do this in 1 batch. If you have a smaller one, you can do it in even more batches. Kind of just customize it to what you have handy in your kitchen. Start preheating the pan. I'm gonna get this over medium-high heat and add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm gonna let the oil heat up while I am seasoning the salmon. just some good old salt and pepper on 4 8-ounce salmon fillets. In culinary school, the #1 thing you learn is always make sure your food is seasoned. The #1 issue most people have in the kitchen is they don't season their food enough. It helps bring out all the flavors. I'm gonna start with 2 fillets skin side down. It's a really easy reason why you want to start skin side down, and that is because as soon as the fish hits the pan, it will begin to shrink. So if you start with the skin side up, as the bottom sears, the skin is going to curve, and you're not going to be able to get that super crispy skin that you're looking for. All right, let's take a look. Oh, nice crispy skin. Flip these over. Let the other side get nice and golden. All right. This looks perfect. Again, you don't want to overcook the fillets. We're just going to do a few minutes per side. Look at that color. I'm going to pull them, put them right onto a platter. Meanwhile, we are going to cook the other 2 fillets. And we're going to get our sauce going. Fish is cooked, time to finish our sauce. We have our reduction that I just threw back onto the heat, bring it up to a simmer, and now I reduced it to low. I'm going to start adding in cubes of cold butter, a little bit at a time, and we're gonna keep whisking. As soon as they're emulsified and incorporated, we're gonna add in more. Some key tips that I learned from the class we sat in on: don't boil your reduction like crazy. You want it simmering. You want it to go low and slow, and that way you help caramelize the sugars in the champagne, and it gets a much more like complex, richer Beurre Blanc. Do you know what an emulsion is? An emulsion is when you are encapsulating fat into a liquid, something that typically, these are 2 things that do not like each other. That's why when you see like salad dressing, we're gonna be like the oil and the vinegar, completely separate. What we're doing here is we are forcing fat, butter, into this vinegar reduction. So it's super important that the heat is not too high, that you continue to whisk, and that you don't add in too much butter at once. And in the same way like making a mayo, the more fat you add, the thicker this is going to get, and by the end you're gonna have a nice viscous sauce that will pour over the salmon so beautifully. Like that, you have a perfect Beurre Blanc. This is it. This is French cooking fundamentals. Honestly, it's simple, focused on technique, and once you grasp it, you're able to do such a myriad of incredible dishes, including this one. So let's give it a little taste. Look at that consistency. Let's see for seasoning. Wow, that's really good. You think like, because you add so much butter, you're like, oh, it's gonna be so heavy, so like super rich, too rich, but it really isn't, because that reduction of the champagne and the vinegar and the shallot and the peppercorn, it brightens the whole thing. It's the perfect balance of tart and rich. Let's plate it up. I'm just gonna grab some flat leaf parsley, a little bright green garnish, roughly chopped. Again, you could also chop up a bunch of herbs and mix them into your Beurre Blanc before you plate. You just don't want to do that in advance, or else they will lose their vibrance in color and flavor. Perfect. Only one last thing to do, give it a try. That's so good. A perfectly seared piece of salmon is a wonder on its own. When you add in a champagne Beurre Blanc, this is next level cooking. It's perfect for date night, entertaining, any time in which you want to show off a little classic culinary flair.